Welcome to this presentation on the subject of 30 causes that can adversely impact the accuracy of cost in profit and loss accounts. Overall, this is my 74th presentation considering all the YouTube presentations that I have made so far. What I plan to include in this presentation are 1. Reporting requirement for cost as per the Companies Act 1956 in India, summary of the costing methods and causes adversely impacting costing accuracy, key components of cost in each costing method. There are 5 methods listed. Listing of operating causes that can impact accuracy of costing. Listing of ethical causes that can impact reporting of costing accuracy. Way forward to mitigate risk of inaccurate costing. Reporting requirements. The costs are governed by the statutory requirements under the Companies Act 2013, in particular Section 148 and the Cost and Works Accounts Act 1959. Industries covered. Certain classes of companies are mandated to maintain cost records and undergo cost audits as specified in the company's cost records and audit rules 2014. Maintenance of cost records. Companies to which cost audit reports must applies must maintain cost records in a manner specified by the cost accounting standards issued by the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. The cost audit reports in the Form CRA 3 as prescribed under the company's cost records and audit rules 2015 provide a comprehensive analysis of the cost records maintained by the company. Form CRA 3 mentioned above along with the company's comments must be filed with the central government within 30 days of receiving it from the cost auditor or within 180 days from the end of the financial year, whichever is earlier. Number 1, cost statements. A comprehensive cost statements for each of the product services including the following are required to be filed. 1. Direct material cost. 2. Direct labor cost. 3. Direct expenses. 4. Factory overheads. 5. Administrative overheads. 6. Selling and distribution expenses. 7. Abnormal cost and adjustments. Now, there is a requirement of detailed statement to be submitted as an annexure to the above cost statement reports, which include 1. Material consumption, quantity and cost details of the raw material, utilities and consumables. 2. Overheads, breakup of factory, administrative and selling distribution overheads. 3. Cost allocation, basis and methodology of cost allocation. And 4th, reconciliation statement, reconciliation of the cost records and the finance with the finance accounts. Overall summary of the costing methods and the causes adversely impacting costing accuracy. This table has got 4 columns. 1. Serial number. 2nd. Method of costing. 3rd. Operation related causes. 4th. Ethics related causes impacting costing accuracy. Row number 1. Absorption based method. There are 4 operations related and 5 ethics related causes identified. Number 2. Activity based costing. 3 operational and 4 ethics related causes identified. 3rd. Job order based. 3 operational and 2 ethics related identified. 4. Process based costing. 4 operationals and 2 ethics related causes identified. 5th. Standard costing based. 1 operational and 2 ethics related causes identified. So overall 30 causes have been identified, which will be presented in the following slides. First of all, for each of the costing, I'll be sharing examples of the few cost elements so that the understanding is much better. So let's talk about absorption costing first. So in this absorption costing, there are 2 types of cost. One is the direct cost and the overhead costs. Cost heads include under the direct cost, column number 2, raw materials and direct labor, and under overheads, column number 2, factory overhead and maintenance. So let's look at the direct cost, raw materials. The examples of cost elements are, say, in this case of manufacturing of refrigerators as an example, the steel sheets for the body, the compressor, the plastic parts, etc. For the refrigerator, paints, control panels, consumables, and so on and so forth. There can be hundreds of items. Direct labor, these include work hours spent on cutting, bending, welding, assembling, etc. And quality control, personnel inspection of process and parts, WIP and end products. Overheads include factory overheads, rent for the production facilities, depreciation, utility bills for electricity, and so on. Maintenance They include maintenance costs for machinery and tools, ERP software, licensing and upgradation cost, etc. These are just a few examples. There can be many cost elements. Operational causes that can impact costing accuracy in absorption costing: misjudging the allocation base for material consumption, misjudging the allocation base such as labor hours and machine hours, 3. Data entry errors for overheads, and 4th, data entry errors for the maintenance costs. That means for there can be error in each of these cost heads: raw materials, direct labor, factory overhead and maintenance. Ethical causes that can impact costing inaccuracy in absorption costing: 1. Intentionally manipulating the cost data to meet the targets or create a favorable financial image vis-a-vis raw materials, labor, etc. Number 2. Misallocation of the cost, deliberate assigning higher overhead or maintenance costs. 3. Compromising safety to reduce the costs. 4th, environmental negligence, using cheaper, environmentally harmful materials or, for example, refrigerants. 5. Underpaid workers or using unfair labor practices. This can all lead to incorrect costing. Activity based costing. Now, one example of activity based costing is manufacturing of the aerospace engine, which is a sophisticated engine. Here, the types of costs here are, one is the activity specific cost, and second is the resource cost. Now, let's look at the activity based cost. There are different heads in column number 2. Under the cost head: design and engineering cost, machine shop cost, QC cost, heat treatment processes, assembly and testing, and special coating costs. Let's take one or two examples. Like in the case of design and engineering cost, the examples of the cost elements are CAD modeling and simulation for the cost engine components, is cost related to that. Then prototyping activities for testing and design activity, cost related to that. And machine shop cost, for example, they assume setting up a high precision CNC machines for specific components like turbine blades or combustion chambers, and the cost related to that. Now, let's look at the another cost element like assembly and testing. Assembling sub components and running functional tests, this is row number 5. Assembling and sub components and running functional tests under simulated operating conditions, for example, high temperature and pressures, and special coating costs. So these are just examples which I'm not reading all, which you can read at your layer. Resource related costs: there are 3 cost heads indicated: labor, utilities, and overhead in column number 2. Examples for the labor are, the cost elements examples are skilled machinists for the CNC operations, uh, 2. Aerospace certified quality control engineers and technicians, etc. Utilities are power for heavy duty machines like CNC and furnaces, and cooling tower for maintenance optimal machine and material temperatures. So these are the few examples of the cost elements which need to be captured accurately. Causes that can impact costing accuracy in activity based costing: 1. Misidentifying or improperly defining the activities and their corresponding cost drivers. 2. Data entry errors towards cost elements associated with each applicable activity, and missing expenses with respect to sources like labor, utilities, and overheads. And ethical causes are deliberately excluding activity specific costs. 2. Intentionally excluding costs related to the resources like labor, utilities. 3rd, manipulating the cost data and underpaid workers. So these are the for the each of the type of the cost head, and for each of the resource cost, I have indicated some of the examples of operational causes and ethical causes. Now let's look at the job order based costing example. Here let's look at the example of manufacturing of the custom built furniture. So direct cost, here there are 2 heads: direct cost and indirect cost. Two type of cost: direct cost and indirect cost. And the cost heads and the direct costs are column number 2: raw material for the job, direct labor for the specific job, and indirect costs are factory overhead and general labor. Now example for the direct costs are raw materials for the job. Let's say for the manufacturing the custom built furniture made out of wooden, the specific type of wood chosen by the clients, that is a major cost element. Then paint, varnishing, polishing requested for finishing are also important cost contributors, and upholstery material. Direct labor costs, of course, include supervisors, managers, and maintenance staffs. Factory overheads are depreciation of the tools and equipment used for woodworking, and rent for workshop, etc. And likewise for general labor I have given. Now, operational the causes that can impact costing accuracy for job order costing based are operational causes, inaccurate recording of the direct cost like raw material for the, or labor hours, data entry errors for the indirect cost, and incorrect conversion factors. Ethical causes are deliberate underreporting of the cost and inflating or manipulating the job costs. Let's look at the example of process based costing. Here, one example is uh, costing elements example in the manufacturing of soft drinks. This is a process based costing. So direct costs here are raw materials, packaging material, ingredients added at the specific stages, and so on and so forth. And similarly, conversion costs are labor cost and factory overhead. Let's look at the example of direct cost. Raw materials are here sugar or sweeteners, flavoring agents costs, carbon dioxide for carbonization, etc. And packaging materials can be bottles and or cans and labels. Now the accuracy of the cost of these raw materials is very important. Similarly, let's look at the conversion cost. Let's say look at the labor cost. The labor may be engaged for the machine operators overseeing the carbonization process or the quality control processes inspecting the bottling line and so on and so forth. So inaccuracy in the reporting of these costs can lead to inaccuracies. Causes. Operational causes. Errors in apportioning costs amongst products or byproducts, service, volume, weight, etc. Inconsistent criteria for the ingredients, volume, weight, concentration, etc. And data entry errors in calculation and methodology flaws. Ethical causes can be deliberately overseeing, overstating, or understating production yields to manipulate the perceived efficiency of a process and excluding the costs associated with the waste or defective units from the cost calculations. The last one, standard costing based. Examples are in the say manufacturing of the engine blocks. Here there are two types of cost. One is standard cost and second is the variance cost. Let's look at the standard cost. These are the materials predetermined cost, labor predetermined cost, column number 2, and overhead predetermined cost. So, example in the case of engine block are for the materials studied are raw cast iron or aluminium alloy. Say let's assume that cost is rupees M1 per block engine block, assuming precise weight and quality, and two gaskets and seals etc. say rupees M2 per block for assembly and so on and so forth. And likewise, there can be many other cost components. Go get into the labor related are cost casting operations say rupees L1 per hour for core making, molding, and pouring molten metal into molds. And like then machining technicians say rupees L2 per hour for precision milling, drilling, boring, finishing, etc. And similarly, there can be overhead costs which are listed here, which include like in the last row, machine downtime cost, equipment breakdowns, idle costs for production line, and so on and so forth. Now, variance cost, materials variance cost. This can be if the raw material costs say actual are say M3 per block instead of M1 per block due to supplier price hike. We looked at this material cost say M1 in the per block for the raw materials, and if this goes up to say M3, then that causes variance. Then there can be usage variance also. That means more material is consumed, say an extra percentage of consumption, say R2 instead of earlier R1 due to reaction in the casting or machining, thus increasing the cost. Similarly, there can be labor variance, efficiency variance, like operators take say T2 hours instead of standard say T1 hours for machining due to tool wear, etc. And rate variances in the labor cost because the labor cost increases. Similarly, overhead variance can be there, like for example, energy cost variance. There can be higher power usage during the extended machining cycles, increasing the cost from say rupees OH1 to say rupees OH2. So these original costs are indicated here, like I have stated M1 or machining operator L2 or overhead one in the so vis-a-vis standard cost, the actual cost can be higher, that lead to variances. Now, causes that can impact costing accuracy in the standard costing method. One, unrealistic or outdated standard cost for materials, labor, or overheads, vis-a-vis changes in the market prices, technology, or production methods. And ethical, concealing unfavorable variances or inflating favorable ones to meet performance metrics. Two, establishing intentionally low cost standards to show favorable variances. Now, way forward to mitigate risk of inaccurate costing. They are very example, very important uh, aspects to be covered here. I have covered under two heads. One is the common for each costing method, each of the five costing method, and number two is specific to the each costing method. So let's look at the common for each costing method. Way forward is conduct periodic data training on the chosen applicable costing method. 2. Use real-time data for computing cost. 3. Use advanced tools or software to track and allocate cost. 4. Conduct frequent internal audits. 5. Use automated system to track process inputs and outputs. 6. Benchmark cost against industry standard for validation. Very important and very most favorable for me topic for me. And seventh is promote transparency through clear reporting guidelines. Costing method specific risk mitigation actions are absorption costing, regularly update the overhead allocation basis. To establish oversight mechanism to monitor activity selection and cost. Activity based costing. Two risk mitigation actions are review and validate cost elements periodically for relevance and define activities accurately. Job order costing, row number third. Implement detailed tracking system for capturing job specific costs and to use job cost sheets. Fourth, process costing. Define and standardize the criteria for the joint cost allocation and ensuring consistency, and to review allocation methods periodically to account for process changes. Standard costing. Use software tools to simulate and analyze the variance and to review and update standard costs quarterly or periodically and or when significant changes market changes occur. So depending on the type of industry where you are engaged, you can choose one of the applicable methods out of this listed and initiate risk mitigation actions in case are not already in place. Future references. Building on profitability analysis, my second book was released in November 23, and this blog focuses on 30 causes adversely impacting the accuracy of the cost in P&L reporting. My forthcoming third book will dive deeper into the innovative balance sheet strategies and ethical practices that can unlock profitability. You can also refer to some of my articles of your interest in the following. Website address is given, Facebook is address is given, and LinkedIn is address is also given. Thank you very much.